Hello everyone. Today I am going to be briefly discussing the film V for Vendetta. I believe this film to be rather underrated in that people don't really necessarily talk about it, or when they do, they don't seem to, I guess, remember it, or hold it in a higher regard. And I feel like for this film, it should be praised for the things that it does. Again, it's not a perfect film, obviously, but I think what it is trying to say is rather compelling, and I find it interesting that it does it in such a way that's fairly, I think, relatable to an audience. So that's why I've decided to put it in this underrated category. Now, V for Vendetta is basically takes place in Britain. I believe this is intended to be a British film, and that it's trying to have all British characters. I'm not sure. I don't think all the actors are British. Natalie Portman's in this movie, so there are some people that aren't really from Britain that are in this film, but it is trying to tie into a lot of themes that sort of deal with Britain, and Britain sort of being a strong European superpower, because in this world that V for Vendetta creates, Britain is actually the only country that's fairly stable. All the other countries, including the United States, are no longer a superpower. There's been sort of struggles and diseases, in particular I believe it's called the St. Mary's virus that spreads in Europe. So really, the movie paints a picture that things aren't going so well for the Western world. And this has resulted in dictatorships. Now, this is where we get to sort of our antagonist, who is the High Chancellor Adam Sutler, and he's played by John Hurt, and basically his character is designed to be a dictator, and he's sort of the dictator of just Britain itself. And even though Britain has a dictator, it seems to be the most stable. You'll see how these kind of dictator-like elements kind of come into Britain, like with the whole formation of these kinds of concentration camps where they put people in who are different. You'll get a whole sort of backstory of somebody who sort of went through the process of having to be detained, and you'll see how that's incorporated into the film. There's a lot of just chaos. It's really V for Vendetta as a film is just trying to create this world of like chaos, and in doing so, show how chaos can bring about injustice and can take away people's freedom and rights. So really, it is trying to paint this quasi picture of democracy versus a dictatorship. And basically, you'll sort of see too how the virus plays a role in the plot as you're going through, and you'll kind of see where it came from, and what its purpose sort of was. And we also get these fairly compelling characters, which I think are serve the film really well. We get V, and that's just his name, V, played by Hugo Weaving. And basically, this character, for the most part, or yeah, pretty much the entire film, you don't see his face at all. But I think Hugo Weaving just does a really good job of trying to give this character emotion. And I think that's really hard to do when you're in a mask all the time and you're trying to think of ways in which you can display emotion. But I think he comes off as a fairly strong character. And basically, V is against this order. He's against these kinds of people that are in power. You'll sort of see how He saves, in particular, another main character in the beginning named Evie Hammond, and she's the one that's played by Natalie Portman. And basically, these two end up developing a relationship as a result, and you'll kind of see how they become our main protagonists, and that they, in a sense, try to change sort of the status quo that's been established within British society. And you'll kind of see how the relationship is rather complicated, and how the relationship sort of develops Natalie Portman's character. Because in the beginning, she's just a fairly normal, average citizen, just sort of going about her life and sort of going along with the status quo. But then when she meets V, she kind of gets the inspiration to fight against this kind of authority, and you'll sort of see the ways in which V sort of seeks out kind of revenge for those who've maybe died in these concentration-like camps, and you'll kind of see how his character sort of had to go through similar circumstances. And I think it really tries to create a really good relationship between the two characters, in particular Natalie Portman and Hugo Weaving. I think they really try to make their relationship really interesting, and their relationship is really what carries the film. And the interesting thing too is that they try to give sometimes their side characters a little bit of dimension. There is a lead inspector whose name is Eric Finch, and he's Stephen Ray, and I believe he's British. And he basically, or his the actor is British, but he basically is sort of in charge of getting rid of V, because V has been causing all of these quasi assassinations and of these like high-powered people, and it's his job to sort of figure out what's going on and who this V is. So you kind of see him too, and in that he's just trying to sort of do his job, but at the same time he sort of changes a little too, in that he kind of realizes how the system is corrupt, and it doesn't really, I don't think he really realizes it so much until the end of the film. But I think they do try to give the inspector some kind of dimension, in that he's not this like evil, power-hungry inspector, and that he's just some average person just trying to do his job. And I think he's kind of displayed similar to Natalie Portman, and that these people, they just feel like, yeah, I should just go along with whatever is going on, because I don't have the power to change anything. And then they realize that they end up having the power to do so. So, and sort of V is sort of that inspiration for them. So I think in that respects, it's a very uplifting kind of film in a way. So overall, I think it is a good film. It's not perfect, obviously, but they really, I think, do try to paint this world of kind of a 1984, in sort of a 1984 style that I think really works. They really try to make it look bleak and authoritarian, especially when you see sort of the dictator going out and talking to people. And it's also interesting to hear the dialogue in this film, because when Hugo Weaving says it, his lines are so eloquent and uplifting, and when you see him going on the TV and saying something, it's rather inspiring. And I think it kind of shows you that people who are maybe put in a leadership-like position, they can do that leadership of, they can be a leader of good and provide something to the people, and by giving them sort of their power. But there's also other leaders who sort of take that power away, and I think V was trying to be the character of trying to restore this sense of freedom for people. So again, I think that's inspiring and touching. I think ultimately that's all I can really say about this film without giving really anything away, because again, it is a fairly interesting film and the way it handles the plot. Are there a little bit odd moments? Yeah, there is kind of these little awkward moments that maybe, are just maybe a little bit too over the top, or maybe not so realistic. But again, I think it's not trying to be realistic as it's trying to show an audience of what could potentially happen when these changes from democracy to dictatorship arise. And they kind of express it, I think, in a way that enhances our understanding sort of what freedom means and what the people stand for. So really, that's, I think, ultimately all I can say about the film as a whole. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. I wouldn't regard it as a classic, but I do regard it as a film that's underrated, and I think it would be cool if more people could have the opportunity to see it if they wish. So I think that's really ultimately all I can say, but if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But until next time, everybody, bye-bye.